Hey, welcome to Story Circle. If you're returning, welcome back. It's always great to have you here. And if you're new, hi, my name is Celeste. Here on Story Circle, I get to read your stories. If you ever have a story that you want to share, check in the description on how you can share your story. I'd love to read it. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to Guy A. Sims, an author to many of the stories that we already have here on this channel. Thank you, Guy, for always sharing your stories, and I hope you have a great birthday. And now, let's get to our story. Say, do you believe in giants? Well, Guy A. Sims, our Philadelphia-based author and birthday boy, writes a story about a mean old giant who stomps through the foothills of the land. He also writes about how two twin boys stand up to the giant. Thanks, Guy, for your story. So, sit down. Do I have a story for you? Today, we're going to read The Turnbucket Twins from Rife Powers and Other Too Tall Tales by Guy A. Sims. Standing face to face with a man more than 20 feet tall was not an uncommon occurrence to the folks who lived in the northwest corner of the land. This is not to say that hundreds of giants roamed the hillsides, but that there were a couple that were pretty ornery when it came to social graces. Many a time, folk woke up to find cattle, horses, or even entire chicken coops missing. If it weren't for the fact that the giants were especially strong and mean, most folk wouldn't stand for their nonsense, but since they were, most folks did. Blowhard Brunson was one such giant. Since his childhood, he spent most of his days terrorizing and tormenting the countryside. If he saw a cow that he wanted for lunch, he just took it. If he was thirsty, he would pull an entire well out of the ground and satisfy himself. Unlike most giants, he did offer the folk he terrified a sporting chance. If they could prove themselves better than him, he would leave them in peace. This sounded all well and good, but no one could ever best him in anything. Blowhard knew this and enjoyed being the meanest giant in the land. One afternoon, Blowhard was walking across a small hill when he saw off in the distance the wisp of smoke from an old cottage's chimney. Listening to his stomach growl, Blowhard decided to see what he could eat. As he got closer, he could see a pen chocked full of fat hogs. Blowhard smiled as he reached over and grabbed 2 hogs in each hand. "You set those hogs back on the ground." Blowhard turned to see who was brave enough to yell at him, much less tell him what to do. He laughed to see an old lady waving a broom wildly over her head. "Go somewhere, Granny. Can't you see I'm about to enjoy myself this here lunch?" Blowhard slammed his hands down on the ground, which caused the old lady to fall. Blowhard laughed even harder. "You should be ashamed of yourself to treat an old lady like this." The old lady picked herself up and threw her broom at Blowhard, hitting him on the arm. Blowhard continued to laugh and said, "Granny, if you can find someone who can best me at anything, I will gladly leave you alone." With that, Blowhard grabbed up 6 more hogs and walked off. Later on that evening, he returned to take 8 more hogs for his supper. Granny was furious. Blowhard stopped by her old farm almost 3 times a week. She asked all her neighbors for help, but no one was brave enough to stand up to Blowhard. Finally, when she was down to only 6 hogs and 15 chickens, she decided to call upon her nephews who lived several towns over. Their names were Hackle and Hockle Turnbucket, but they were just known as the Turnbucket Twins. Most folk would just say, "Hey, Turnbucket Twin," when they saw one, since they couldn't tell them apart. They were that exact. Granny explained how Blowhard was eating her into ruination. The Turnbucket Twins gladly obliged to lend a hand. They told her to stay with a friend until they finished with the giant. On the first day back at the farm, Hackle decided to slop the hogs. As he was feeding, he heard booming footsteps coming over the hillside. He turned his back so that Blowhard would have to speak first. Granny told Hackle that even though Blowhard was a mean, ornery, and greedy giant, he was kind of mannerly.
"Say there, cousin," Blowhard greeted. "How are ya today?"
Hackle acted as if he didn't hear him. He continued to slop the hogs and whistle quietly to himself. Blowhard cleared his throat and spoke again.
"I said, hey there, cousin."
Hackle continued to ignore Blowhard. This only confused Blowhard. Usually by now, most folk would be running and screaming. This time, Blowhard reached over with his pinky finger and tapped Hackle on the shoulder. Hackle turned around and extended his hand. "Well now, I wasn't expecting any buyers today." Hackle shook Blowhard's finger. Blowhard was perplexed. He knew that he hadn't come there to buy anything. He had come to take a hog or two for an afternoon snack. "Can I interest you in buying one of these here hogs?" Hackle smiled as he displayed the fattest one of the group.
"No, thank ya. I just came by to..."
Blowhard didn't know what to say.
I just came by to take one."
Blowhard reached past Hackle and grabbed two of the hogs. "Now, hold on a moment there," shouted Hackle as he grabbed at the tails of both hogs. "You just can't go around taking what ain't been given to ya." Blowhard began to smile. He placed the hogs down and scratched his head.
"How about this? If you can best me in something, then you can keep your hogs. And I won't come back to bother ya anymore for a while. If I do, then the hogs are mine."
Hackle agreed. Blowhard began to set the challenge, but Hackle spoke first. "I got a test for you. Let's see who can balance on Granny's fence the longest." Hackle jumped up onto the top beam of the fence and balanced himself for about a minute before he fell. He got up, dusted himself off, and then invited Blowhard to take his turn. Once Blowhard placed his foot on Granny's old rickety fence, it came crashing down, breaking into 100 pieces. "I guess you lose," Hackle smiled. Blowhard turned to walk away, but Hackle ran to block his path. "Wait a minute. The bet was to stand on the fence, not to smash it. I think you owe us a new fence." Blowhard thought for a moment. He didn't want to be known as the fence-breaking giant. So he promised to come back the next day and mend the fence, which he did. In fact, it was stronger and better than the original one. After that, folks didn't see Blowhard for some time. Several weeks went by, and the word had passed through the town that Blowhard had returned. The Turnbucket Twins were still at Granny's, so this time, Hackle decided to handle Blowhard if he showed up, which he did. One afternoon, while Hackle was feeding the chickens, he heard booming footsteps coming over the hillside. Just like Hackle ignored Blowhard for a long time until he was tapped on the shoulder. "What can I do for ya?" greeted Hackle.
"Not you again."
Blowhard slapped his forehead.
"I thought you'd be long gone by now."
Hackle smiled because he knew that Blowhard could not tell him apart from his brother. "Can I interest you in buying some of these chickens?" Blowhard was hungry, and a few chickens would ease the grumbling in his belly. He was about to grab a handful of chickens when Hockle blocked his path. Blowhard scratched his head for a moment, then said,
"How about this? If you can best me in something, then you can keep your chickens, and I won't come back to bother ya. If I do, then the chickens are mine."
Hockle agreed. Blowhard began to set the challenge, but Hockle spoke first. "I bet I can climb to the roof of Granny's cottage faster than you. We'll take turns, and I'll go first." In a matter of minutes, Hockle climbed the side of the cottage and soon reached the roof. In a bit, he was back down and invited Blowhard to take his turn. As Blowhard climbed the side of the cottage, his feet kicked the windows, his hands crunched the sides of the wall, and once he reached the top, the weight of his body caused him to crash through the cottage, destroying it. "I guess you lose," Hockle smiled. Blowhard turned to walk away, but Hockle ran to block his path. "Wait a minute. The bet was to climb the cottage, not to smash it. I think you owe us a new cottage." Blowhard thought for a moment. He didn't want to be known as the cottage-breaking giant, so he promised to come back the next day and rebuild, which he did. In fact, it was bigger and roomier than the original one. After that, folks didn't see Blowhard for some time. The Turnbucket Twins were eating supper one evening when a neighbor told them that Blowhard had returned. They decided that it was time that they take care of Blowhard once and for all. After the neighbor had told them where Blowhard lived, they went to see him. They saw Blowhard getting ready to sleep for the night. Hockle hid behind a large tree as Hackle approached. "Say there, Mr. Blowhard, what you doing?"
"It's about my bedtime. Leave me alone and come back tomorrow. I've got to get me some sleep."
Blowhard began to lay down. Hackle waited for a moment, then said, "How would you like to have all the food you want, every day, brought to you right here?" This, of course, made Blowhard sit right up and grin. He knew that he couldn't be tricked this time. This boy was now at his place.
"Sure, would love that."
"Great. Then I got a challenge for you. It's about my bedtimes too, so here it is. I bet I can stay up longer than you. If I fall asleep first, then I'll bring you as many hogs and chickens you want every day. If you fall asleep first, then you leave. Forever." Blowhard thought for a moment, then laughed.
"Okay, boy, you're on."
The two sat by the fire through the night. When morning came, they were both still wide awake. Hackle stood up and asked if he could walk and stretch a little bit. Blowhard said it was all right, but not to go too far. Hackle walked around to the large tree where Hockle was fast asleep and woke him up. They traded places. Hackle went to sleep, and Hockle returned and sat down next to the fire. They did this for 5 days. On the 6th day, Blowhard was overcome by sleep and fell face first onto the ground. 2 days later, when he woke up, he stood and walked north, never to be seen again. The Turnbucket Twins returned to Granny's cottage and were treated to a grand meal before returning to their town. For as long as they lived, they heard neither a word nor story about the whereabouts of old Blowhard Brunson. Rumor traveled around that Blowhard was so embarrassed by his loss that he hid out in the forests of the north, got rid of his clothes, and allowed his hair to grow shaggy so that no one would recognize him. Whenever someone was missing a cow or a hog, in the back of their mind, they might just be thinking it was Blowhard Brunson. The end. You know, the next time I need a problem solved, I'm definitely gonna call the Turnbucket Twins because they have some great ideas. Thanks, Guy, for sharing your story. I also want to give another shout out to C's, who provided the music for today's episode. This by far is one of my favorite songs he's created for us. If you like the music just as much as I do, check out the description for how you can hear more of C's music. Thanks, C's! Well, that's all I have for today. Join us next time on Story Circle to hear more of your stories. See ya!